Welcome to Dare to Be Seen, brought to you by Alyssa Vulpes Productions and EDN Publishing. Join our host, Alyssa DiNapoli, aka Alyssa Vulpes, author, artist coach, hypnotherapist, singer-songwriter, and drummer, as she engages in down-to-earth, insightful, and inspiring conversations with female indie singer-songwriters around a virtual campfire. We shall discuss the lessons, songs, and personal stories of women who dare to be seen, scratching beneath the surface to give you an insider look into what makes their chosen career sometimes challenging and yet always inescapably compelling. So let's get the show started.
Welcome to another episode of Dare to Be Seen. I am your host, Elisa DiNapoli, aka Elisa Vulpes, and today's episode features the wonderful Briget Boyle. Now, Briget's musical background ranges from the folk music of the Balkans to the folk music that surrounds her on the west coast of the US. She recently released the second solo album, The Next Line, and when the guitar isn't in her hands, she is the creative director of Wax Simile Productions, which she founded with her father, Tim Boyle, to focus on both profitable and equitable methods of creating musical products. Now, before we meet the wonderful Briget Boyle, I would like to invite you to go to tinyurl.com/daretobeseenpod, where you will find my free ebook, Dare to Be Seen, From Stage Fright to Stage Presence, where you will discover how to turn any stage nerves that you may feel into authentic confidence, so you can perform at your very best, even if you're an introvert like me, or you have been out of the game for a little while. And now, here's Briget Boyle.
I'm finding myself needing hope. Like, I need to feel some sense of room and space and hope for the future. Because if I focus on what's wrong with the world, there's no hope, right? Like, there's just no hope. And I think the more we can hear honest, authentic storytelling of what's actually happening, like, the more we'll have an opportunity to heal and grow.
Whisper in my ear, tell me I look stunning today. Kiss me, my dear. There are no games to play. I know, you know, that we have so much time to be grateful for all the treasures we find. Keep it simple. Keep it simple.
So, Briget, it's great to finally meet you, even though it's just a virtual meeting. And you are joining us, I believe, from Oakland, California.
Yep, that's right. Oakland, California. It's beautiful here.
So I was reading on your website, Briget, that you're a very, very busy lady. You've got loads going on. You've got a record label. You've been in many different bands. You play Balkan music. You also play your own folk music. And so what's happening at the moment, even with this lockdown, you seems to be super productive.
Yeah, I don't even know where it comes from, but I do know because my parents were also very productive, are also very productive people. But yeah, I have a lot going on. I'm doing my own music. As you said, I'm running a record label called Waximile Productions, which has been in a big transition because the co-founder of the label, who's also my father, passed away about 9 months ago. And is that right? Oh my goodness, or maybe 8 months ago. But we have been totally reshaping and reformatting the label, and we've taken on some new partnerships and collaborations that are really exciting. And then I also still sing with Kitka Women's Vocal Ensemble. I actually rejoined the group about like 2.5 or 3 weeks before sheltering in place started. So it's kind of been an interesting transition from being in something where we can sing together in place to having to do everything virtually. And then True Life Trio is still active, and yeah, there's a lot going on. But if I keep busy with music, my spirit stays well. So I've so I keep busy with music.
Yeah, I can relate. Some people I've talked to have felt the opposite. They felt like really not inspired to make music. And then I've also met people who have the opposite experience where actually they've never been more productive. And I guess I have gone from one extreme to the other myself. And I think it's a bit of a
Yeah.
coping mechanism, at least for me. Um,
Absolutely. I feel like it's back and forth and up and down, and every day's a new day. And some days I'm really productive and really inspired, and some days I'm not. I haven't been writing as much as I maybe did when I had more outside input.
mm,
But I'm starting to feel the creative flow coming back in. Um, I did spend a lot of time in the beginning of quarantine, like learning how to do more advanced video editing and how to live stream a festival and how to do, sort of how to take this medium that I've been working on for so many years and broadcast it to a larger audience. And that's been a really fun journey for me.
yeah, so I can hear you're a bit of a jack of all trades. You know how to do a lot of things.
Yeah, in fact, my mother once called me a Jill of all trades, and it inspired a song on my first album that's called Jill. So
Awesome, awesome. I like that. Yeah,
yeah.
should say Jill of all trade, of course. Yeah, I'm a bit like that myself. Do you
Oh,
have?
gender, it's a construct anyway. So
Yeah. I mean, is there something that you prefer, though? Among all these activities, is there your a favorite?
wow, that's a really good question. I think like the deepest, most centered part of me most prefers writing my own music and recording and perfecting my own music. The next level part of me enjoys singing with other people and singing folk music, and then that also in my mind includes teaching. I have a program called Unleash Your Voice, and I've been doing these online warm-ups a couple times a week, every Monday and Thursday for a half an hour at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. And it's like, it gives me so much joy to help people access their own voices. And I can really feel, I have between like 20 and 40 people on Facebook Live for each one. And it's just, I feel this like energetic lift every time I do it. So that's been really great. I think singing is really like the core of my musical joy, you know, and that can be realized in my writing and in singing with other people and in teaching.
Right. And do you is that always been the case? This love for singing, is that how your love of music emerged in the first place?
Yeah, I'd say so. My mother is has an incredible singing voice, and she had quite a career in the music industry. I grew up in Los Angeles, and she's a country music singer, and she was like signed to Atlantic Records, and did really tried to pursue the mainstream music thing, and had me singing on stage with her when I was really young. And I think that's, of course, sort of the home was full of music. And it was all my mom's music. Like, she's a songwriter as well. It wasn't like we were sitting around singing folk songs. It was very much like she was creating music. So I was kind of always around that sort of activity. And then my dad was a recording engineer for film and television, and so I kind of fell in love with like music and its relationship to images and to film and to entertainment. And yeah, I think, I just, it started from the beginning, like probably even before I was born. Um, and then it really picked up when I was in college. I studied performance and composition and got really into world music. I took a world music ensemble that was focused on Middle Eastern and Balkan music. And there was something about singing folk music from the Balkans that just opened up my heart and opened up a path that I walked on and still am walking on for many, many years. I sing in a group called Kitka, which is a women's vocal ensemble. And I was the lead singer and snare drummer for a band called Brass Menagerie. And we did Balkan brass music. And yeah, it just, music, when I follow music, like the adventures and the good parts of life unfold. And that's always been true for me. And when I kind of get fearful or distracted or really feel like I need to like be being a producer because I can't be creative, or like being a performer is not lucrative or whatever, like things get more complicated inside my system and not as clear. But when I'm like stepping in the direction of creating and promoting and being involved in music and learning music and creating it and teaching it, life just gets better. So
Wow, I mean, there's so many questions I want to ask you. I don't know where to start. Um, I guess maybe the first question, the obvious one, is do you ever get overwhelmed with all of these things?
yeah, for sure. I mean, um, I think, yeah, I do. I do. Right now, I'm actually in this really beautiful um, place of like sort of a, how am I going to say this? Like I'm in a spiritual practice zone where I'm like meditating every morning and writing in my journal, doing morning pages. I'm doing the Artist's Way, which is a program by
Yes.
Julia Cameron. It's amazing. And it's really like helping me not get overwhelmed and really helping me look at where is my like where's my fire, and like what makes me feel centered and what makes me feel grounded. I think I get overwhelmed when I've overcommitted, which is a practice that I've also perfected. But I'm learning lately to actually say no to things or to like have a limited role within them and to really focus my role for the most part. Like I would say with my company, which is, the record company and production company, I do end up being in this sort of administrative and productive production role. Um, but with all the other projects I'm involved with, I'm really trying to just be like a musician and just say like, I could do all the production and administrative work, but am in this to make music, and so that's my priority. And that's been really helpful to I used to lead with I'm a production manager, and now I'm leading with I'm a musician, and that transition has really shifted my life and how, you know, and it's not perfect. Like I say this today because I'm in a really good place, but like tomorrow I might just be like, I'm so overwhelmed. But it's a day by day. Like life is just one day at a time, and yeah, and so is the artistic journey. You have to be so present in order for it to unfold in the way that it needs to.
Yes, absolutely. I've been there myself. I do a lot of things, and I find it sometimes difficult to focus or find what is the thing that I really need to do right now, or without being distracted by the shiny object syndrome. So one of the things I wanted to ask you is around this. You're talking about the book by Julia Cameron. I'm familiar with that, and a spiritual practice. So do you have a kind of a ritual or something that allows you to get in the flow, in the zone?
I'm so glad you asked that because I feel like I'm actually in a place where I'm able to articulate what works for me, because I feel like I actually have just discovered it. And it's actually waking up really early. Like I wake up at 6:45 a.m. or 7, and I tend to my personal needs, and then I kind of straighten up my kitchen, make coffee, and then I sit outside and I write my morning pages, 3 pages. I got a bigger journal so that it's actually really 3 pages. For a long time, I was writing in this like tiny journal and saying I was writing 3 pages, but it was more like one. And so now I'm like actually giving myself some space to do a brain drain. And then at the end of that, I meditate for 5 minutes, because right now that feels like all that feels like, if I can maintain that, eventually I'll be able to grow that meditation practice. But the 5 minutes, and then I eat breakfast, and then I have started to do some sort of musical activity first thing, whether it's the online warm ups or practicing my guitar a little bit, or listening to music, like just, putting on music in my home, and, kind of thinking about my day and planning it out. And then, really, yesterday I had this great experience where I set a timer for 25 minutes. I work for 25 minutes on financial crap, book, spreadsheets and whatever. And then I take a 5-minute break and I go outside. And I did that all day. And then I found in the evening, I was like, I had some creative room because I had been really like specific about how my work energy was focused. And it's hard because I have a lot going on. I have found it tricky to know where to focus. But the more I focus in on like, um, gosh, I guess connecting with myself, connecting with my community, connecting with my creativity, and leading with creativity, like, with my business, there's this group of people, we get together every week and we talk about business, talk about like building a cooperative label, because that's kind of the process that's unfolding right now. We've said, like, what if this business is not led by like the business part of it, but led by the creative part of it? And that just feels so generative to me and so like energizing, and it's given me this ability to like think really big about what the potential is of this label. Like, it's turning, it's a women-led label. It's turning into like a queer roster, not all queer, but like, that's kind of become like my community. I'm a bisexual woman, and so like my community is a bunch of incredible queer musicians. And like the more I focus in on like how can I creatively build this business so that I can support this community around me, the more I feel focused, and when I'm like, oh, how do I make money, or like how do I do these spreadsheets, or how do I, yeah, yeah, I feel like I don't have any energy. And I'm just like, I don't want to do it. Like, I don't want to do that stuff. But when I focus on the creative part, the business stuff comes easier.
Wow, that's very inspiring. I have what I'm hearing is that you're bringing the creativity to the business, not just the business to the music. So it's you're actually creating a business by bringing value to the people that you're serving, and then the money takes care of itself, which is a really good way of looking at it.
I'm really, yeah, I mean, that's, and one of the things that I've realized about the industry is so much of it is like the general practice is like musicians have to make the music, and then like maybe it'll make some money, like maybe they'll be able to survive, but they have to like do these 100,000 things in order to like make a point 0.006 cents on Spotify. And I'm like, what if we flip that on its head? I mean, this is at least like the American system. I don't know how it is where you are, but like, what if we flip that on its head and actually paid musicians to be musicians, like, and help them develop their business skills, and be aware of like the larger music industry, but like really be able to help them with that financial piece. So that's kind of what I'm looking at, is like how, like, who are the investors in my, that I can talk with to say like, hey, I really want to build something where artists are able to be artists and not just like product makers or content creators. Like, I want them to be valued. I mean, I think this is a really great moment in time to like realign our values for art making, because it's certainly gotten really bad because consumers don't value music anymore. in the way that they used to. It's background now, it's like you put on your Spotify playlist and you go all day where, it used to be people would sit down and like listen to a record and like buy it and then go to a concert and buy a t-shirt and do this, da, 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 da. And so I think we as a label head, I really want to figure out a way to say to my artists, like, I can give you a small monthly stipend to keep writing and keep creating, and it's not that you create it and then I pay you if it makes money on this like ridiculous market. It's like you make it and then we put it out there. I don't know. I mean, it might be a terrible business model, but I think there's something in it.
I love the idea, can I be part of it? No, I'm joking. Uh,
We should talk. I mean, I'm open to, like, any ideas and collaborations. I just feel like we have to create a new world right now,
yeah, yeah, I
and the
totally
music
agree.
industry is such an important piece of it. It's like music is the, like, center of human experience, and if we don't have a healthy industry, then, like, it's just a sign to me of things that need to shift.
Absolutely. I mean, the people I've been talking to, whenever I ask them about the music industry, it's almost like it's a dirty word, It's like,
Right.
oh God, I don't want to think about it. I don't want to be in it. It feels alien. So, this
Yeah.
idea that it's actually us bringing value to others and in a way that's sustainable, that's what it should be. But, it's about finding the way to make that work. And I
Yeah.
guess I wanted to ask you about your experience since you brought it up. You've got this group of people. It's bisexual women, straight women. It's open to all kinds. And have you found within your group that there was a dissatisfaction with the way things are in general in mainstream society when it comes down to being a woman and being a musician? What's your experience?
Yeah, I think my experience, I've been a part of a few different sort of community-based, music organizations, and, like, there's this one that I've been a part of called Balanced Breakfast, which has some really interesting meetups, weekly or monthly all over the country, all over the United States, and there are some nation or international. And what I was recognizing was this feeling of like you go into a space to talk about the music industry and basically like people would just kind of bitch about the music industry with like an occasional solution dropped in or like an occasional idea for like, oh, what if we try this thing? And not to knock Balanced Breakfast by any means because it's been an incredible thing that I've been involved with. But I got this sense of like I'd I'm finding myself needing hope. Like I need to feel some sense of room and space and hope for the future because if I focus on what's wrong with the world, there's no hope, right? Like there's just no hope. And so that kind of has inspired me to be thinking and like creating these sort of generative ideas and thinking about creativity and allowing for my friends to inspire me and to keep me positive. So there's one. And then, yes, women in the industry, I do feel like there is something happening in the industry where like women are being hired more or like the guy at the head of the recording academy said the thing about women and they need to da da da, and so there is this like okay, it's almost like a tokenistic hiring of women and not a centering of women. And I'm more curious about like women and non-binary, I should say, like LGBTQ, sort of the marginalized portions of our culture. Like I'm curious about how women would lead the industry. Like how would it be if it's not like you have to connect to the guy who can pull you up in the ladder, but what if we just make a new ladder? And, and what that means or, like, what is forming in my head right now is, like, fully focusing the projects, the work that gets done for the projects on, like, you know, say you make a record, there's probably I don't know, 20 at least people involved in it. And what if 18 of those 20 people were like not male? Like what would that look like, you know? And like what would that sound like? And how would that sit in the market? And I don't know, I feel like there's this really sort of deep evolution happening in like the feminine side. I remember when the presidential election was coming down in 2016 and it felt like the world was just falling apart. I heard this psychic talking about how like the male energy is or like the male energy of the like binary is going down and like the divine feminine is coming up, and in that process there's going to be like when the male energy goes down there's like flames and destruction and like craziness, and it's just like it's going to go down in flames, you know, like it's not going to go down easy. But what's interesting is I am seeing this like more holistic um dialogue happening in a lot of different like parts of society, you know, like talking about Medicare for all and talking about like, you know, um, tending to the marginalized of the marginalized of the marginalized, and like holding the people who are suffering and taking care of them. I feel like it's such a feminine, maternal um, instinct.
To me, it makes a lot of sense. I actually recently finished a book by Lama Tsultrim Allione, who is the only female lama that
Mm,
exists, and she talks about the divine feminine in these terms as well. And she's saying, yes, the divine feminine is also, you know, the earth is representing
right.
this energy, because you know we have treated the earth as an object rather than our mother. You know, the one
Mm,
that actually gives us everything we need to survive. And now all these things that we are seeing, such as, you know, climate change and everything that comes with it, it's almost like well, it's the consequence of what we've done, of this mistreatment, if you like, of
yeah.
the divine feminine. But of course, yes, this is not to say that, you know, anything male is bad or wrong. It's more that,
No.
you know, there's a negative side to both the masculine and the feminine energies. And the way I see it is that both reside inside ourselves, but we've kind of focused a bit too much on the masculine side.
Absolutely. And there needs to be balance. And I'm curious about that, you know, in terms of how that balance can sit within music and can sit within a music community.
Yeah, and
Um,
I wonder, you know, you have been now in this industry for many years. You've got quite a lot of experience, and I was wondering, you know, if you were to give advice to somebody just starting, a young woman perhaps, what advice would you give her?
that's a really great question. I feel like that changes a lot as I've grown in the industry. I think like the first thing is like listen to yourself, listen to your gut. I feel like some of the best artists that I have listened to or fallen in love with in terms of their art making are the people who are they don't you know, they don't comply. They don't like turn over for the sake of like getting more plays or selling more CDs. They make their art. They tell their story. And I think the more we can hear honest, authentic storytelling of what's actually happening, like the more we'll have an opportunity to heal and grow. So I think that's number 1. And number 2 is like you don't have to do it all. You don't have to be everything. Delegate. Like learn how to delegate learn how to ask for help. Learn how to, you know, be willing to admit when you've got too much on your plate and then seek out the help. And also, like, the industry can't define you as an artist. Like, you have to have your own value within yourself, and if you depend on external validation from this ridiculous industry, uh, it's not gonna happen. Um, and it can I think I've seen people be destroyed, emotionally and psychologically. You see, I mean, somebody like Britney Spears, for instance, like talk about somebody who was like held up by the music industry and like revered and then completely destroyed because she was so young. And like from my perspective, I don't know her at all, but like it seemed like she just was completely unsure of herself. And she had to go through this like really intense mental break in order to like get to the place where she's like, okay, I know who I am. So like how can we avoid that?
Wow, yeah, I can relate. I mean, obviously, I've never been famous like Britney Spears, but when I was in my 20s, I remember really unconsciously depending on other people's opinion and looking for validation there. And it's a big trap because then,
Yeah.
even though it didn't change the way I was making music, it did inhibit me quite a lot and made me feel scared of the judgment, and then one of the big lessons of growing up is to actually learn not to care about
Mm,
that, but instead realizing the music is about sharing your message, sharing what you've got to say.
right.
So I guess my question there would be, do you have a particular message? Does your music encapsulate a particular topic, or are you more inspired in the moment by what's happening?
That's another great question. I would say that the thing that I think my music is about, I mean, it is about my experience, and a lot of stuff I write is like personal and deeply personal. Um, and I think in that way, what my music about is like vulnerability and honesty and like being okay telling my story and finding some integrity and value within my experience. Um, it's actually been a piece of feedback over the years that has sits in this like kind of painful place for me is that my music is too personal or too specific to like my experience and not universal and not relatable and whatever. And my response to that is if everybody like just wrote about things that weren't specific to them, then like we wouldn't have an intimate experience of music. And that, you know, I don't know. I just feel like my music is about intimacy and about vulnerability and creativity. I mean, every time I do a show, it's been a while since I've done a show, but my message to my audience is always like, if you feel moved by the music that you're hearing, go make your own music. Like don't just hold your creative voice behind the shell of you, like put it out or create it, record it, write it down. Like we need like humans from my perspective are all like we're I think part of what's gotten so out of balance is this like lack of connecting to the creative self and filling the void with television and social media and all these things. And so I'm sort of like, let's get creative, let's all heal through creating. Because for me, it's like the number one. Yeah, I have a really good therapist now, but beyond that, like, writing a song or like journaling for an hour or even just sitting outside and being quiet are like so powerful and healing.
When you were talking about that person saying, "Oh, your songs are too specific," that's to me just felt more like that person didn't specifically relate to you. But actually, I find that songs are a little bit like books, in character in books.
Mm,
The more specific a character is, the more specific the story is, the more universal it is. Because otherwise, you just are very bland. You just
yeah.
end up writing a song that goes, "Oh, baby, I love you, come back to me," that kind of cliche, And who wants
Right.
another song like that? There's plenty, right? Um,
Right.
um,
Right.
and another thing I'm hearing is about this connection between music, creativity, and healing. Your personal journey. Do you, use your music to heal yourself or for personal development.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I released a music video a couple months ago for this song Salty Tears, and it's a really, for me, that whole process of writing that song, recording that song, and then making the music video was a deeply, deeply healing process. It took me like a couple months to get the song written because it was just like the experience that I was writing about was such a deeply like traumatic, like emotionally traumatic experience. And then I I loved the way it turned out on the record. Like so much, I just feel like it was like, wow, this song kind of shaped into this new thing that I didn't quite, because I had a really wonderful producer that I was working with and he really helped me realize the song in this new way, which was like another level of healing. And then I worked with this director on this video and yet again it was like, oh my god, and he took me through this process of like really digging in on like what was the story and like how, what are the elements of it that you're still struggling with, what have you liberated yourself from, and da, 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 da. And you know, by the end of it and by when I put it out there, I felt this like release of something just really deep, you know. And I think that's just one example of, you know, how powerful music can be for me. And you know, I've written through many hard things in my life. Like this, I wrote a song a couple weeks ago talking about what's happening in my personal, like in my relationship, and I feel a little better about my relationship now. You know, it's like,
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. I've written a lot of songs about relationships. In fact, at some point, I thought that I should have, instead of, titles that were general for my albums, I should just call them, I don't know, Jack, Gareth, Andrew. It's like, oh no,
100%.
no, no.
100%. Oh my
um,
God.
but one thing that is sort of emerged from what you said, that stayed with me was that, songs and albums even more are a little bit like a film. You can't really do it on your own. I mean, you could try, but it's always better if you're collaborating with other people. And I guess I'm wondering, how do you find your collaborators?
That's a great question. There's been a number of different paths to the collaborators that I've found. Um, you know, believe it or not, like, I mean, okay, being in the Bay Area and being in the music community, it's like I live with my, you know, my housemates are musicians and da, da, da. So anyways, my second record was produced by my housemate who is also an incredible bass player. His name is Mike Shiono. And backup vocals were my other housemate Tim Silva. You know, so it was like really much really about reaching into my community. And then like being in Kitka actually has given me a lot of collaborative leads, I guess I should say. It kind of brought me into the Balkan music community, and through that I collaborated with a lot of different people who were really dedicated to the folk music of Eastern Europe. And yeah, and now, you know, now my collaboration, like I met Dill Billy, who's the like newest artist on my label. I met them through a friend of mine, and I was just like, I love your music. I would really love to work with you. And that, you know, that impulse of like attraction and like being, I was so moved by their music that I just like, I was like, I don't care how it happens, but I have to sign you because you're so deep and wonderful and awesome. And it's led to a number of different collaborations and kind of also introduced me to this community that I feel really strongly involved in and invested with now. The sort of um, amazing, like rocker queer women in the Bay Area who are just like badass people and really create just incredible music. So yeah, I come at it from a lot of different angles. Um, I've always been one of those people who's like kind of friends with everybody, you know.
You mentioned, many times the music from the Balkans, so that makes me very curious about your connection with that music. What is it that attracts you to it?
I have no idea other than like I heard some Bulgarian singing when I was in college and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's it." Like I there was no um I just was so attracted to it. I loved the sound of it. I was super interested in the harmonies. I loved the vocal style, and then it turned out that, like, I could do it really like, with relative ease, and, I think okay, I have a couple theories. One is that, like, I'm Irish, right? So or, like, my heritage is Irish, and so I know that the Celts had some time or traveled through Bulgaria, and I sort of wonder if there's some sort of, like, deep ancestral connection. Because, like, I went to Eastern Europe the first time I went to Eastern Europe, I remember flying into Greece and just having this, like, bizarre sensation that I was coming home. Like, I'm getting chills just talking about it right now. Like, I just felt so connected to that earth, and I it's like it was weird. I had never been there before, but I just felt, like, this familiarity, and, like, the languages have it I don't speak the languages, but, like, singing them or, like, expressing that, just, like, it's not hard for me, like, I feel this I don't know, it's like a soul thing, I guess I should say.
I was gonna say past life or something, but in fact, maybe who knows? Ancestral heritage possibly. And but I do get it. I mean, I used to have that kind of thing with Ireland a lot. I'm Italian, but the first time I went to Ireland, I had exactly a really similar experience, and I so much that I actually had to go and live there for 6 months. Yeah, and
Wow,
then
really? That's so cool.
yeah. And then I, couldn't for whatever reason, I had to leave. But it helped to let it go, because I really needed
Mhm.
to feel that place, and I have no idea what that was about. But. So I guess before we play one of your songs, I guess the last question I wanted to ask you, if you were to define what success for you is in this field, how would you define success?
You're full of really great questions. Success is hmm, it feels so far from, like, money right now, which is kind of interesting because, like, I need money to do everything, but it's, success is feeling held by the community uh, and supporting and uplifting, like, music. It's about, um it's like being of service to the world through music. Like, I think that feels successful to me. Like, if people hear what I'm doing or hear what my company's doing and, like, are inspired, that feels like success to me. Like, I think about when I teach, um, like, the best feeling for me is when somebody's like, "I had a breakthrough." I'm like, "Awesome. I don't know how I'm gonna pay my rent this month, but, like, yeah." You know? And it just feels like that's it. Like, that's what we're here for, you know? And, and I'm really excited to, like, find the sort of financial alignment with that, but for now, it's like the creative, energetic whatever is that's what I'm here for, so
Before we get into the song, I knew I did say that was my last question, but I just do want to know what is coming up for you. What's the next level for you now?
Well, that's so the next level is I'm as I said, I'm reworking and redeveloping the label, and we're kind of I'm looking at building a cooperative label where everybody who works for the label is like somehow has a vested interest in its success, and we're all kind of holding each other up and sort of working together to uplift all of our music careers. So that's that. I'm also doing the production company wing of the label or of Waximile is doing we're producing a monthly live stream music festival called I Need Space, and I Need Space Festival.com is how you can find out about that. And we're also about to produce a podcast called Working Class Windows, which incorporates the music of Dillbilly, who's one of the artists on the label, and portrait photography and oral histories. So that's going to be coming out. I know it's like a podcast with portrait photography. So how does that work? But we're kind of in the process of figuring out all the little details of it. It was supposed to be a live touring concert, but alas, COVID has kind of shifted those priorities. So that's happening. And then I want to work on my next album. I have a lot of material I've been writing, and I'm in touch with a couple of different producers that I'm considering. And yeah, I want to just write and create and put out music and try on new things, and just be generative right now because the world needs music. It needs also, like, healthcare and, like, a lot of things, but I also wanna spend the next few months really focusing in on the election in November and making sure that the United States can really shift our priorities.
Let's hope for the best there. And I guess people can find your music on your website, which is brigetboyle.com, but also we will have information on all your various projects in the show notes of this podcast. So if you're interested in anything that Briget is doing, just head on over to the show notes. And the other thing now that I'd like to share with our listeners is your beautiful music. So you're going to play a song called Magic Trick. Do you just want to tell us a little bit of background on that song?
Yeah, sure. I wrote the song in Point Arena, California. I took a little bit of a vacation. I took like 3 or 4 days by myself, which was the first time I had done that maybe ever. And sat in a cabin and just made music for 3 days, and this was one of the songs that came out of it. It's the lead track on my record, The Next Line. And in the qu- in the quarantine time, I've realized there's a lot of solitude right now for a lot of people, and there's actually, if I'm on it and if I'm connected, there's a lot of value to that solitude. And so it's kind of a shout out to the introverts among us, and also to having some space and time to think and get creative. I learned a magic trick, a disappearing act, a little hideout from the world, displacing memories, replacing them with remedy. A starry night, a cabin in the woods. The air was cold in there, middle of nowhere. I chose to listen from the start. Hours passed into days, the silence stripped away. I slowly came apart. I find I'm a maze, solitude. I sang of days gone by, hummed a lullaby, remembered how to breathe. No way to be misunderstood, alone, me and the firewood. No one to hear me but the trees. I find I'm a maze, solitude. A skeptic put to sleep, awakened in her majesty. It might be alchemy. I find I'm amazed. Solitude.
Ah, lovely song. Thank you so much for that. That was really, really nice. So thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a really interesting conversation, and it's been a delight to have you and to listen to your lovely music. And all the best for your projects in the future. I really do wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. It was really super enjoyable. I wish you the best as well.
That was my guest, whom I'd like to thank once again for coming to the show. Every week, I'll be chatting to fantastic indie performers to uncover what it really takes to be a female, independent singer-songwriter in this day and age, and how we can support one another to keep shining our light onto the world through our creative endeavors. So make sure you don't miss out by subscribing to Dare to Be Seen and follow us on socials at tinyurl.com/daretobeseenpod. I've been your host, Elisa Di Napoli, aka Elisa Vulpes. Thank you for listening, and please do rate and review the show. I'd love to hear your thoughts, unless you hate me, in which case you can skip that bit.
That's all for this episode of Dare to Be Seen. Join the conversation on facebook.com/groups/Dare to Be Seen podcast and help create an empowering community of independent female singer-songwriters who support one another. For show notes, resources, and information on today's episode, visit tinyurl.com/daretobeseenpod. And remember to shine your own unique light onto the world. It needs it.